Cada oscilación nos aporta energía, armonía y paz. Mucha paz, pero mucha.
Long live great Russia's motherland, built by the people and a mighty hand. Long live your nation, united and free, shining in glory for all men to see.
In the winter of 1912, amidst the bitter cold of Antarctica, British explorer Robert Falcon Scott led the Terra Nova expedition. Determined to reach the South Pole, Scott and his team embarked on a perilous journey that would unveil a mystery far greater than anyone could have imagined. As they pushed through the unforgiving terrain, Scott's team stumbled upon a series of ancient ruins, weathered by time and preserved by the frozen landscape. Scott ordered his team to document the ruins meticulously, photographing the intricate structures and carvings. Recognizing the potential implications of their discovery, Scott made a fateful decision. He chose to keep the film hidden, fearing that their release could invite unwanted attention from rival nations. Back at their base camp in Cape Evans, Scott concealed the film in a hidden compartment within his personal belongings. His intention was to reveal the photographs to the world when the time was right. Tragically, fate intervened before Scott could fulfill his plan. Scott and his companions succumbed to the relentless Antarctic cold, and the hidden photographs remained undiscovered, trapped in time like the ancient ruins they depicted.
uses this element 115 as its fuel. Inside the reactor, element 115 is bombarded with a proton, which plugs into the nucleus of the 115 atom and becomes element 116, which immediately decays and releases or radiates small amounts of antimatter. The antimatter is released in a vacuum into a tuned tube, which keeps it from reacting with the matter that surrounds it. It is then directed towards the gaseous matter target at the end of the tube. The matter and antimatter collide and annihilate, totally converting to energy. The heat from this reaction is converted into electrical energy in a near 100% efficient thermoelectric generator. This is a device that converts heat directly into electrical energy. This particular disc appeared to be in excellent condition, and because of its sleek appearance, I nicknamed it the Sport Model. The Sport Model is about 16 feet tall and 40 feet diameter. The exterior skin of the disc is metal, which is the color of unpolished stainless steel. The Sport Model sits on its belly when it's not energized. As you can see, the hatch is located on the upper half of the disc, with just the bottom portion of the door wrapping around the center lip of the disc. The interior level of the disc is divided into 3 levels. The lower level is where the 3 gravity amplifiers and amplifier guides are located. These are the things used to amplify and focus the gravity A wave that we learned about in our science lessons. The reactor is located directly above the 3 gravity amplifiers on the center level and is in fact centered between them. The reactor is similar to this half-scale model. The element 115 is machined into triangles like this and is then inserted into the reactor. This piece of element 115 is the source of the gravity A wave as well as the target that is bombarded with protons to release the antimatter. The center level of this disc also houses the control consoles and seats, both of which were too small and too low to the floor to be functional for adult human beings.
Morning, everybody. Let me show you something. I am not allowed to say where I am right now, but check this out. We call it the Sport Model here. All right, hear me out. This thing has been levitating with anti-gravity for over 70 years. Under the new declassification law, we're now authorized to gradually reveal what's been hidden from the public for decades. Okay, guys, I'm out. Catch you soon.
And the Illuminati know that they're finally primed for world domination. And soon you've got black helicopters coming across the border, puppet masters for the new world order. Be aware, there's always someone that's watching you, and still the government won't admit they face a whole moon landing. Thought control, race, psychotronic scanning, don't mind that. I'm protected cause I made this hat from aluminum foil, where it had this foil line in case an alien's inclined to probe your butt or read your mind. Looks a bit peculiar, seems a little crazy, but someday I'll prove there's a big conspiracy.
Tell me what you do when you make a Carvana water. Shut the fuck up, don't say shit. You solved the fundamental physics mystery, what now? Shut the fuck up, don't say shit. Etching you self-consciousness and wanna tell your friends in the gut. Shut the fuck up, don't say shit. Etching you self-consciousness and wanna tell your friends in the cut. Shut the fuck up, don't say shit. Shut the fuck up, don't say shit!
Passing Rouen Cathedral, something almost literally out of Jules Verne. This car can cruise at speeds of up to 70-odd miles an hour on water. The energy factor, of course, is hydrogen, which, as any schoolboy knows, is contained in water in the ratio of 2 parts to 1 of oxygen. A formula described by Jules Verne more than 100 years ago. So what have we been waiting for? The engine can also power a generator, to provide light and heat. And what's more, it's pollution-free. The car's already run for well over 1,000 miles, and the promoters say the scheme is practical and a commercial proposition. Fuel on tap, in fact. An ordinary day in an ordinary supermarket.
And if traffic was bad, the parking problem was impossible, just like now. So one California genius disproved the simile useless as a fifth wheel. His fifth wheel aimed sideways, and with it you could sneak into the tightest hole. Relevant power steering? Well, somehow it never caught on. Why not? We'll never know. That's ancient history.
emerging from a spirit of ingenuity and creativity and an uncompromising will to change the world for the better. A place where the most advanced R&D methodologies are paired with unique engineering skills. A global scientific innovation center, an incubator for artificial superintelligence and new energy technologies. The world's first electrolyte mass production. Power for a clean and sustainable world. Creating disruptive innovations. Changing perspectives. Breaking new ground. And continuously pushing the boundaries of academic knowledge. Inspiring science, empowering technology, and igniting the spark for a far-reaching transformation. Witness the dawning of a new era of technology. Here is where its heart beats. Quant City.
When Q arose on October 28, 2017, little did we know that a new era had started. Something big, something massive started unfolding before our very eyes, but most people remained completely in the dark. Through the Q drops, hints, clues and questions were planted like seeds, waiting for humanity to be picked up, researched and unraveled. Bit by bit, we, the people, woke up. Using other means than the mainstream media, the QAnons started communicating with each other through Facebook, Twitter and other social media. The same social media that was set up by the cabal to monitor the people 24/7 were now used to find each other and to spread news and findings. There was no stopping us anymore. People in France went out into the streets in yellow vests, showing President Macron that they no longer complied. What started off with small groups evolved into mass protests. For over a year now, tens of thousands of people have been gathering every Saturday. Not just in France, but in Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, Bulgaria, Turkey, Poland, Hungary, Taiwan, Australia, Iraq, Israel. The mainstream media tried to make people believe it was just a fading phenomenon, but the people saw through their lies. George Soros then intervened in his own special way. He paid his people to mingle with the Yellow Vests and start riots. The ever-successful way to discredit a group of protesters with peaceful intentions, made them look like vandals and aggressors. Soros's rats attacked the police. But this strategy didn't work either. His rats were not very smart. They forgot to put on yellow vests, and in the heat of the fight they shouted, "Paris! Paris! Antifa!" Then they forgot who they were supposed to attack, so they went for the yellow vests as well. Macron got scared. He told the French police to strike down the protests with all means necessary. But the police officers took off their helmets in solidarity with the yellow vests. What else could the cabal do? Use extreme violence. Army forces were deployed. Snipers were put on rooftops to shoot at the yellow vests if necessary. Thousands of people got injured. People died. France is in the middle of a civil war, but the mainstream media remains silent. 23 yellow vests have died for believing in a better world. South America too shows massive protests, where people demand their corrupt governments to step down. The world is experiencing the biggest revolution ever. The worst nightmare of the cabal has come true. The people have woken up. And contrary to other revolutions that humanity went through in the past, this revolution is one of knowledge, understanding of how things are run by the elite, and the willingness to work together to create a better world. A revolution of the people can only work when there is help at the top. That help was never there in the past, but now there is. That is what makes this revolution different. We have an ally at the top, an ally that we refer to as Q. Q is a group of people, not an individual. The intel Q provides is top level. I believe Q comprises of Donald J. Trump and some of his most loyal army generals. Without the help of the army top, the plan that is unfolding would never stand a chance. But there's more to Q than meets the eye. I am convinced there are some secret components that will be revealed soon. President Trump and the entire Q team are working out a plan that has been in the making for the past 20 years. A plan so all-encompassing, it took this long to calculate every step, every move to perfection. Every possible outcome of each and every step was thoroughly mapped out, leading to the next optimal move. We're talking probability calculation at the highest level. How do we know? Because Q made predictions of events that we, the people, could never have foreseen. President Trump gave clues in his speeches that pointed to events that were about to unfold, but most people didn't even notice them. The mainstream media made fun of them, but the QAnons recognized them and realized just how brilliant Q really was. Let me give you a few examples. In the middle of a press conference in November 2017, Trump stopped a few times to take a sip of water from a small plastic bottle. It seemed weird, completely overdone. He repeated this a month later in the middle of a talk about national security. He held the glass with two hands like a child. The mainstream media went hysterical, claiming the president was either retarded or suffering from some degenerative disease. The Anons, however, knew immediately that he was pointing out something. The water bottle contained Fiji water. Fiji water is bottled on the Isle of Wakanda. In 1973, Wakanda was bought by a Canadian businessman, David Gilmour. In 1996, he founded Fiji Waters. In 2016, Claire Bronfman, heiress to the multi-billion-dollar Seagram liquor fortune, bought 80% of Wakanda from Gilmore and financed the setup of NXIVM on the island. Exactly, the sex cult run by Keith Raniere, who branded his initial into the women that he kept on the island as sex slaves, who were lured in by sweet-faced Alison Mack, the Smallville actress. The ball started rolling, arrests were made, and in April 2019, Raniere was found guilty on all charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking. Some of his victims were minors. Claire Bronfman and her sister Sarah pleaded guilty on all charges, as did Alison Mack. More incriminating things will come to the surface soon. NXIVM donated a large amount of money to the Clinton Foundation. Claire Bronfman was CEO of a company called Bronfman Rothschild, as was Evelyn Rothschild and his wife Lynn. Remember them from the previous episodes? Isn't it fascinating how the same key players keep popping up? There's one more disturbing thing about this case, which involves the Dalai Lama. In May 2009, the Bronfman sisters organized an event with the Dalai Lama in Albany. There was a lot of criticism towards the Dalai Lama. How could he connect his good name with a sex cult? But he decided to go anyway. 10 days after the event, the Dalai Lama Trust was founded. According to its tax filings, the trust received $2.2 million in donations in its first year. Was the Dalai Lama bought to connect himself to NXIVM? According to an inside NXIVM member, this was indeed the case. The Dalai Lama's office and the Bronfman sisters denied the allegation. Now that this has come out into the open, it would be nice if the Dalai Lama would at least explain why he went along with the sex cult or apologize. But instead, he blames Trump on unethical behavior. Now, why was the Fiji case so important? NXIVM will soon turn out to be just a small fish compared to what's coming. Think crimes against children, sex trafficking, and satanic child sacrifice. Think big names like the Clintons, the Obamas, and the Podestas. What Trump did was he started off with a case important enough to be presented to the people, but small enough not to completely shock them. He chose NXIVM to let the public get used to the major offenses that are about to be revealed. This is what we call red-pilling the people, a term coined in the movie The Matrix. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill? If you choose the red pill, you will be shown the truth, and there's no way back. Here's another example of Trump's brilliant strategy. In June 2017, Melania boarded the presidential plane on her way to visit a youth detention center with Mexican migrant children who had been separated from their parents. She wore a coat with the text, "I really don't care, do you?" It was a strange choice, for the coat wasn't fashionable at all, and the text was quite provocative, to say the least. Once again, the mainstream media went into a frenzy, but the QAnons knew the Trumps were giving yet another clue. The coat turned out to be a Zara product. An investigation made clear that Zara made use of slave labor. As a result, Armancio Ortega, founder and CEO of Zara, resigned 6 months after Melania's action. Yet another clue that was being given by Melania was the fact that these children were not separated from their parents, but saved from child traffickers. More than 8,500 CEOs resigned over the last 2 years, many for unclear reasons, just like Q had predicted. Was Trump indeed draining the swamp like he had promised? One of Q's crumbs that was repeated several times was, "We have the server." It quite clearly referred to Hillary Clinton's server, the one she tried so hard to destroy before it would be used against her in a court of law. But how did the Q team lay their hands on it? The clue was given in Helsinki, Finland, when Trump met Vladimir Putin on July 16, 2018. Trump openly asked the audience, "Where is the server? Where are the servers? They are missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary's emails? 33,000 emails. They're gone. Just gone. I think it's a disgrace." Remember the scene with the soccer ball? Putin handed Trump the ball and said, "The ball is now in your court." Trump took the ball and said, "This will go to my son, Barron." He then threw the ball to Melania. What was so special about the ball? Why the big smiles and the twinkling in their eyes? What was going on here? And why did Melania post a tweet with this picture later that year? Many QAnons agree on the theory that the content of the servers was inside that soccer ball, containing enough incriminating evidence to put a lot of people in Washington, D.C. behind bars for life. Try evidence for the Uranium One scandal, where Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, and with knowledge and approval of President Obama, gave Russia control of 20% of America's uranium by approving the Rosatom deal. The Russian company Rosatom had bought the Canadian company Uranium One in 2010, 3 years after the latter had purchased Eurasia, owned by Frank Giustra, our friend with the pedophile logo from Part 4. Remember? Giustra had officially stepped down after the purchase, so why did he donate $145 million to the Clinton Foundation right after the Rosatom deal was signed? Why on earth was he too embraced by the Dalai Lama? And why the hell did he get the Dalai Lama Humanitarian Award when he is involved up to his ears in child trafficking? Why did Bill Clinton receive $500,000 for a talk in Moscow right after the Rosatom deal was announced? Do you know what we're looking at here? Bribery, corruption, pay-to-play, money laundering, and high treason. This was the real Russian collusion. Oh, by the way, why did Trump say this soccer ball was going to his son Barron? According to insiders, Barron is extremely intelligent with an IQ of 146. He is said to be incredible with computers, especially when it comes to hacking, cracking codes, passwords, etc. Bearing this in mind, I so understand the facial expressions that one fine day in Helsinki. Soon, very soon, there will be arrests. Mass arrests. Everything has been laid out. 20 years of preparations. The CIA, FBI, DOJ, NSA, every three-letter agency has been cleared of deep state actors. How can you make arrests when the agencies are corrupted? You cannot. That's why Comey, McCabe, Brennan, and other key players had to go. That's why some of them suddenly stepped down while others were fired. The stage has been set. The world will be in for a major shock. How on earth are people going to respond when it becomes clear that Obama, Pelosi, Schumer, Feinstein, Strzok, Page, the Clintons, that they all tried everything they could possibly think of to impeach the President of the US? We will soon see that it went much further than just spying. It went as far as organized murder attempts. The cabal, the deep state, tried to assassinate the President of the United States on multiple occasions. They tried to force Trump to go to war with North Korea, but after annihilating the cabal strongholds there, he brought peace. They now try to force him to go to war with Iran, but I can assure you he will do the exact same thing. Annihilate the cabal strongholds first, and then bring peace. Q said it would happen this way. First Korea, then Iran, Israel last. Then there is Obama's high treason. Everything you were told about him by the mainstream media will soon turn out to be false. Falsified on purpose. Soon we will be presented with hard evidence concerning his birth certificate, his ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, the extremist party behind ISIS. Pictures such as these will start to surface. Obama and the Clintons integrated the Muslim Brotherhood in the American government at the highest level. Remember Huma Abedin, Hillary's right hand? Her parents were directly connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, as is her brother. Where do you think that leaves her? Remember John McCain? What was he doing in Iraq with the ISIS top 4? Why did Trump say they caught the 5 most wanted ISIS leaders? Not 4, 5. Did you notice something weird about the flag on his coffin? It was wrinkled. Only traitors get wrinkled flags. It was a code. High treason, death penalty. Did you really believe he died of cancer? Do you still believe Osama bin Laden was the enemy? That he was responsible for 9/11? That he set up Al-Qaeda? He was a CIA agent before he became the enemy. His American name was Tim Osman. Osama Osman. Did you hear about Team 6, the Navy SEALs who killed him? They all died 3 months later when the helicopter crashed. No eyewitnesses who might once tell the tale of what really happened. We've been lied to on a scale we cannot fathom just yet. History books will have to be rewritten. America was sold to the highest bidder by Obama, the Clintons, and the Bushes. Do you realize the state of shock people are going to be in when the truth finally hits the surface? Do you understand why Guantanamo Bay has been fully upgraded and expanded? Do you have any idea how many sealed indictments there are waiting for the perfect moment to be unsealed so that arrests can be made? More than 100,000. Many will be prosecuted for treason, some for high treason. High treason means capital punishment, death penalty. There will be chaos and shock, but there will be guidance from totally unexpected mystery guests. This moment in time is one that will make history, one that is unprecedented in the history of mankind. Information is to first deny it and ridicule the messenger, then get scared, angry or depressed, and finally accept it as the new paradigm. This will take some time. I believe we're going to need a spokesperson to convey to the world what happened. Somebody who will be believed by everybody, Democrats and Republicans alike. That person cannot be Donald Trump. He will be hated by the Democrats, no matter how much peace he brings upon them. If I were to choose, for the US at least, it would have to be JFK Jr., John as his father used to call him. Loved and trusted by the entire nation, mourned by every American citizen. Too bad he is no longer amongst us. Or is he? When I first heard about the possibility of him still being alive, I thought, oh God, not yet another conspiracy theory. But when I did some more research, I started doubting. This is an aerial photograph of JFK's memorial. That's right, it's a Q. Remember this code? It was engraved in the ship bell on JFK's boat. Where we go one, we go all. JFK was murdered because he wanted to expose and get rid of the cabal. He intended to start with the CIA, just like Donald Trump. He too knew that the CIA had turned into an uncontrollable monster that no president or government could restrain, but he had no idea what he was up against. JFK was assassinated. Nobody will ever forget these pictures. John saluting at his father's funeral. The entire nation mourned. Junior grew up to be a lawyer. He swore he would avenge his father and take his killers to court, even if he had to bring down the government, as he put it. He ran for the New York Senate seat in 1999, as did Hillary Clinton. John would have won by miles. He was born to be the next president of the US. But it wasn't meant to be. On July 16, 1999, his plane crashed into the ocean. There were no survivors. All three on board, John, his wife Carolyn, and her sister Lauren, died upon impact. Their bodies were retrieved and cremated. The remains were kept in Tiffany blue boxes before they were scattered at sea. The entire nation was in shock. Donald J. Trump was in shock. He and John were close friends. When John died, Trump swore he would finish his mission. He promised he would take the murderers of JFK, Sr. and Jr. to court. He swore to drain the swamp. Could John Jr. still be alive? Is it possible that he staged his own death, knowing there was no way he would survive the wrath of the cabal? The only way to possibly fulfill the mission was to stay low. A master plan was developed, and in the course of 20 years, every single step was analyzed and executed. An entire team was put together with insiders at the top who were willing to give their lives for the cause, the annihilation of the cabal and the liberation of the people. They left hints and clues as to inform those who had already woken up to the truth. Trump communicated directly with the people by means of his Twitter account, thus avoiding the corrupted mainstream media. In every speech and every tweet, he used codes for the QAnons to pick up on. He used spelling errors such as kefirfe instead of coffee, referring to a new act about the saving of all social media posts by the president. The act was introduced 12 days after Trump's tweet. He wrote hamburgers instead of hamburgers, referring to people who are below the devil and who commit acts that even the devil would consider evil. He wrote smoking gun instead of smoking gun, referring to the secret, perverted orgies of John Podesta and friends. Trump's clumsy behavior showed his victory over cabal key players. Every move, every so-called error, every little detail was important. Everything was a communication with the people. Remember when Donald and Melania Trump were welcomed by the Obamas at the White House on day one of Trump's presidency? Remember the gift Melania gave to Michelle? The Tiffany blue box? What does that remind you of? Remember the Tiffany blue coat Melania was wearing? So many references to JFK, Sr. and Jr. There's one more clue that John might indeed have staged his own death. In September 1995, he founded and edited a glossy politics lifestyle magazine called George. In this particular edition, the cover seems to be giving a lot of clues. Survival Guide to the Future? Interesting. Bill Gates on world domination? Okay. Hillary Clinton, Indictment Day. Will Hillary get busted? Wow! The lady reappears in the editing room. In the background, there she is. Platform 2020. That's the year of the next presidential election. And then it reads, buckle your chin strap and hold on as George enters the time warp and re-emerges in the year 2020. Time warp? Is this John communicating that he will reappear in 2020? If John is alive, would he show himself to the public from time to time? Disguised, of course, yet clear enough for the Anons to see? Meet Vincent Fusca. Presented to the public as a Trump enthusiast and volunteer at the Trump rallies. Now I know, he's not the spitting image of John Jr. Different nose, different mouth, not quite as handsome. But hey, if they can make Eddie Murphy look like this, everything is possible, right? Bear that in mind. Vincent Fusca does not seem to have a past. No old pictures, no family tree, nothing. He suddenly appeared. His name means Conqueror of the Dark. He often wears a fedora hat, very similar to JFK Sr. And this I find interesting. His nose changes. Sometimes it's bigger than John's, sometimes it's not. Now I can understand why John would change his appearance slightly from time to time as to give hints to the QAnons. But why would a Trump fan do such a thing? Then there's the mystery lady in the audience, always close to Fusca. My, doesn't that big smile look familiar? What about Lauren, Carolyn's sister? The two were very close. Maybe Carolyn didn't want to disappear without her? Maybe she was informed on the plan? And maybe she decided to join them and stay low as well? Could this be Carolyn, presented as Fusca's colleague at the rallies? When Q was asked, is JFK Jr. alive? The answer was no. But when Senior dies, Junior no longer is Junior. The question should have been, is JFK alive? Where does all of this leave us? With the perfect spokesman when he is needed. And that may be sooner than you think. As soon as the FISA documents are released, the sealed indictments are unsealed and the arrests are made, that's when I expect him to step forward. The world is in the middle of the greatest transition ever. An entire era of suppression of the masses is about to end. I doubt if we can fathom the vastness of what is about to be revealed, nor the impact it will have on the world. Think about it. World peace to start off with. That's literally what Trump said to a reporter who asked if he'd be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize will be world peace. Can you imagine a world without war? I don't think we can. We've been led to believe that war is normal, that it's part of being human. Well, it's not. Suppression isn't normal. Poverty isn't normal. There's enough food to feed the entire world. The problem is uneven distribution of means, money, and food. Taxes aren't normal. They're not even legal. Trump has already stated he will get rid of the Fed and several taxes, including income tax. As we have seen in Part 2, they are illegal, unconstitutional. Can you imagine how much money can be saved that way? Can you even begin to imagine what even distribution will look like? Then there's the impact all of this is going to have on our use of energy resources. I'm sure you've heard of Nikola Tesla, the famous inventor of many beautiful things in the area of electricity, magnetism, and physics in general. An absolute brilliant mind who wanted to share his invention of free energy with the world. This was a thorn in the side of the cabal, who made billions of profit with oil, coal, and other fossil fuels. Tesla was arrested. His work was stolen. All his inventions were seized by the American government. John Trump, Donald's uncle, was a brilliant physicist, electrical engineer, and inventor. During World War II, he joined the National Defense Research Committee. In 1943, he reviewed and analyzed the Tesla papers right after Tesla died. That's right, Tesla's inventions on clean and free energy, on anti-gravity, and on much more that has been kept hidden from the public because there was no money in it, fell into the hands of Donald Trump's uncle, whom he loved and greatly admired. Guess how that fits in Q's plan to save the world. Oh, and there's one more thing. Take a look at this picture. Doesn't John Trump remind you of someone? Somebody very important in the truth movement? Julian Assange. Could he be John Trump's son? Donald Trump's cousin? Let's put it this way. Nothing surprises me anymore, and it sure makes sense. And bearing in mind all the magnificent inventions of both Nikola Tesla and John Trump, I wouldn't be surprised either if they had invented a time machine. After all, if you can bend space, which was definitely within the reach of Tesla, then you can change time. If quantum physics is correct, if you can really jump from one timeline to another parallel one, you can time travel, change certain things and go back without people noticing a thing. Unless you leave clues behind, like a magazine that seems totally out of place. Like Q predictions of specific outcomes that could impossibly have been foretold, not even with the use of quantum probability theory. Is that how Q works? With direct knowledge of the future through various timelines, probability waves? Is that why Trump is still alive and even missile attacks have been countered? Is this how Q manages to predict exact poll numbers and events to the minute and second precise as encoded in the Q drops and the Q clock? Is this how the mysterious author Ingersoll Lockwood was able to write a book in 1889 and another one 4 years later about young Baron Trump and his adventures through a space-time portal guided by a man called Don, the master of all masters? All current topics are in the books. Dirty politics, an unexpected candidate, a man called Pence, Russia, even the exact location of the Trump Tower. 1889? The mysterious author also wrote a book about the last president. Furthermore, his name appears on a watch, the Ingersoll Trump Pocket Watch. The same sort of watch used by the White Rabbit in Alice of Wonderland, a tale often referred to by Q. Time travel? The world as we know it is about to end. What is awaiting us is a new era of peace, liberty, equality and harmony. The dawn of the golden age as described in each and every source text. I have grown to fully trust Don, master of all masters. He may seem rude, clumsy and silly from time to time, but he has earned my trust in the past 2.5 years when I suspiciously followed his every move. He is a genius, a 5D chess player, a man with a huge heart. There will be a relatively short bridge period between the two in which people can adjust to the new paradigm and its energies. I don't think there will be much chaos. Everything is ready to be implemented. A new banking system without interest, new ways to educate our children, a new medical system without poisonous, addictive chemicals, and so on and so forth. All we have to do is be patient, watch everything unfold, trust the plan, do whatever we can to help others wake up, and remain focused and ready to assist, ready to help create a beautiful new world. Some people will wake up faster than others, remain calm and in service to all. Or as Q once put it so beautifully, as long as you sleep, we will fight for you. Where we go one, we go all.
Laser technology was used to build the sophisticated buildings we see from the past. There is no way these buildings were carved from a hammer and chisel, nor was this built without the assistance of electrical advanced machines. The detail in these stone-carved buildings reflect how advanced the human mind was in these periods of time. These buildings you see are thousands of years old. What we've been told as history does not match with what we see. Well, that's because history is his story.
here's our flat Earth with our magnetic center. This is the shoreline that we call Antarctica that surrounds our world. And here's my boat. I put my boat down and immediately the compass points north. If I want to circumnavigate, I want to head west or east, but we're going to go west right now. So I'm heading west, and as you see, west keeps turning. So I have to keep going, and this is how, when you go west, you end up going all the way back to where you started from. Same thing for east. I go east, I keep having to turn because my compass keeps making me turn to go east. If I want to go dead reckon west, so this would be dead reckoning west, if you watch the compass, I'm no longer going west, I'm going south. Any straight line on the flat Earth will eventually become south. And that is how you circumnavigate on the flat Earth. Nobody can circumnavigate south, because when you go south, you keep on going. You go north, and as I pass North Pole, I'm now going south, even though I'm going in the same straight line.
Many ancient cultures shared similar beliefs in a sacred place in the north, often described as a harmonious paradise. The Norse would call it Agartha. For Hindus, it's referred to as Paradisha. The Greeks knew it as Hyperborea. The Celtics called it Avalon. Buddhists call it Shambhala. And in the Bible, it's referred to as the Garden of Eden. That's just a few of the names. In fact, this place has been dubbed the Land of 1,000 Names. At the center of this paradise is the Axis Mundi, also called the Cosmic Axis, World Axis, World Pillar, Center of the World, and World Tree. This is said to be the connection between heaven and earth. Here is the Norse depiction. We have Yggdrasil, which is the Tree of Life. This is Mount Meru, from Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu cosmology. It's a central world mountain that reaches high into the heavens, and resting above it is the North Star. In the Mayan cosmology, there is a central pyramid. Same theme with the Inca cosmology and the Navajo cosmology. So you get the idea, and of course this is fascinating on its own, but here's where it gets crazy. In the 15 and 1600s, many maps were made that depicted 4 large islands in the Arctic region surrounding the North Pole. The most popular map with these Arctic landmasses comes from 1595 by Gerardus Mercator, where we can see a large black mountain called the Rupes Nigra, surrounded by a great whirlpool into which 4 powerful rivers flow. These rivers divide a massive landmass into 4 distinct islands. These islands were said to have been written about in great detail in a lost book from the 14th century called the Invencio Fortunata, which itself also references much older and similarly lost work. Suddenly, in the mid-1600s, all traces of the 4 Arctic lands, the central mountain, and the whirlpool had vanished, not to be seen on any map thereafter. Currently, we are told that there is no land at the North Pole, but instead, a floating ice sheet that expands and contracts from season to season. Here's a short clip from a documentary claiming to be going to the North Pole.
Arriving destination 15 feet, 12, 10, 2.
North Pole. Top of the world, guys. Top of the world. We'll get that in a minute, Jake.
How cool is that? So what do you think? Is the real North Pole being hidden from us? Are they hiding land at the center of the Earth? Is that why we are told about Santa Claus at an early age, and it's conveniently related to the North Pole so that when we inevitably find out that Santa Claus is total BS, we also dismiss the North Pole? Not that it doesn't exist, but, you know, we just kind of forget about it along with Santa Claus. Sure feels that way. And as usual, the truth seems to show up in plain sight in Hollywood movies. I just watched the new movie The Dark Tower, based on the Dark Tower book series by Stephen King, and sure enough, it was all about the Axis Mundi.
You draw with a good hand.
I just don't know what this is.
It's a map. My father showed me a map like this once. Inside the circle is your world and my world. Many others. No one knows how many. The Dark Tower stands at the center of all things. And it stood there from the beginning of time.
Dark Tower equals Rupus Nigra, or the Black Rock. And in the movie, a young boy goes to another dimension called Midworld, and the only reason he's able to get in is because, quote,
his shine is pure.
That's a prerequisite in a lot of the North Pole Paradise mythology we were discussing earlier. This magical kingdom will only reveal itself to believers pure in heart. What does this mean? It means that you must shed all your past traditional beliefs and open your mind and heart to the possibilities of the invisible worlds beyond our senses of reality. The Western world has been conditioned to see first, then believe. But in the search for Shambhala, you must believe first. Just like in the movie Doctor Strange.
You're talking to me about healing through belief. I reject it because I do not believe in fairy tales about chakras or energy or the power of belief. There is no such thing as spirit. We are made of matter and nothing more. You're just another tiny, momentary speck within an indifferent universe.
You think too little of yourself.
The Book of Enoch explains something shocking. In the Book of Enoch, Enoch doesn't just see one heaven. He sees a total of 10 heavens. These heavens are often depicted as layers or levels, with each level having its own purpose or inhabitants. Here is a general overview. The first heaven is the closest heaven to Earth, and is where the clouds, wind, and other meteorological phenomena are believed to originate. The second heaven is described as the realm where the celestial bodies, such as the sun, moon, and stars, are situated and move in their courses. The third heaven is perhaps the most popular depiction of heaven, a place of paradise and inconceivable beauty and peace. The fourth heaven is where the sun and moon are placed when they are not visible in the sky. The fifth heaven is associated with various celestial beings, such as angels, who praise and glorify God. The sixth heaven, in some interpretations, is where the 7 archangels reside, each overseeing different aspects of the cosmos. Seventh heaven is where divine mysteries are revealed. The 8th, 9th, and 10th heavens are the highest heavens, with the 10th heaven having God's throne. It's important to note that the Book of Enoch exists in several versions and translations, and interpretations of its contents can vary widely. The idea of 10 heavens and their specific characteristics is not universally accepted among scholars and religious tradition.
The theory of evolution is completely false, and this theory is much more likely. The education system has been lying to us all along. 66 million years ago, a meteorite is said to have crashed into Earth, causing the extinction of dinosaurs. But what if I told you it wasn't a meteorite, but a spacecraft that brought the first humans to Earth? An immense vessel where we would have stayed for years after the impact, waiting for the air to become breathable and the danger to pass. Now you might wonder why there is no trace of this giant spacecraft. The answer is simple. The early humans would have completely dismantled it to build tools and utilize its materials for survival on Earth. And the fact that we come from another place in space would explain why ancient civilizations like the Incas or Egyptians were so advanced and possessed extensive knowledge of astronomy and energy. This would also explain why we can find depictions of spacecraft in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and drawings in Mayan pyramids. But if we don't come from this planet, where do we come from? Are there other humans in the universe?
Rob, what is the Vatican keeping secret?
For the entire time that they've existed, they've collected manuscripts and relics and items from either campaigns or crusades, not only for their own research and to support their ideas, but also to prevent anything coming out. Because they need to control the information around biblical issues and the biblical dogma, they can't allow alternative views to become public, become disseminated.
What kind of things exactly are you talking about?
In terms of documentation, they've got 52 miles of shelving of books and manuscripts alone. So that will be everything from early first century fragments to potentially entire alternative gospels.
And why would that be damaging to the Catholic Church?
Because there's a potential for alternative views to emerge. There were lots of different books originally that were set to go in the Bible, and it was only through a process of politics mainly that the final books were chosen. There are also ideas that there's a book of Q that academics have termed a book that would have been the source material for the main Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, because the main Gospels were written long after the time of Christ. So if they've got something like a book of Q, that would undermine everything else.
Rupus Nigra, or the Black Rock, is a magnetic black mountain in the center of the Earth that has been deliberately hidden for centuries. It is the tallest mountain ever known to man. According to Gerardus Mercator, it has roughly 64 kilometers in circumference, and its height is approximately 13 to 18 kilometers above sea level. And it might even higher if it measured from the bottom, which we never know for sure. How deep this mountain goes to the ground, maybe dozens or even hundreds of kilometers deep, we never know. It is so tall and also huge that can attract all compasses to the far south 4,000s of kilometers away. Compasses will not attract to a magnet. If the magnet is buried deep under the ground, it has to be a mountain to attract all compasses. And that is the Rupus Nigra. As far as we know from mainstream narratives, the magnetic field in the North Pole is somehow buried deep inside the Earth. This is totally absurd, because a magnet will lose its electrical power if it's exposed to heat, like in the Earth's core. So, what does the Rupus Nigra has to do with tides? This magnetic mountain is surrounded by 4 continents, where there are 4 streams of rivers flow from the center. That flows of water goes outward during high tides and goes inward during low tides. And it's always been like that since the beginning of time. And what's causing the water goes inward and outward? There is a magnetic vortex that's caused by the circling motion of the sun, the moon and other celestial bodies in the heaven, powered by the ether, and performs such harmony in our realm. For your information, the modern science doesn't know in what depths the magnetic field is, because they never include it in their imaginary layers of Earth. Can you believe it? For centuries, they really don't know where's the Earth magnetic field came from, or where's the exact location of it.
Tartaria, an empire of wonders. Marvel at the grandeur of their architecture, the intricate machinery that powered their cities, and the brilliance of free energy that illuminated their realms. But with progress came a threat, a challenge to those who sought dominance.
Ornetti's chronovisor was more of an apparatus that enabled him to see back and hear back through time. He was looking something like a TV screen, something like earphones, but very complex, like a little bath escape.
This was a machine, though, that used an antenna in receiving light and sound that exist always, that once produced are always essentially there, and you can somehow tune into them, and that would include, I guess, anything from the present until the most distant past.
That seems to be what Ornetti claimed, yeah. You know, we used to talk a lot in both Akashic records and so forth, and today a lot of his talking about how it's rather quite possible, maybe even probable, that all sounds, all sound waves, all light waves, you know, kind of produced by us as we live, they are absorbed into the environment around us, and they're there.
Did you know that the moon reflects all the continents of the Earth? The moon also reveals lands beyond the icy walls that surround the Earth. This is biblical. The truth always appears as an answer to those who seek it.
You've probably heard about the mud flood theory, but have you ever seen how such a thing could have actually been accomplished? This footage is from the 1922 World's Fair in Brazil. It was called the Independence Centenary International Exposition, and it took place in the city of Rio de Janeiro. They're using a tactic known as hydraulic mining or sluicing, in which high-pressure water jets are used to move soil and rocks. The resulting water sediment slurry of mud can then be directed through sluice boxes and channeled elsewhere. Hydraulic mining originally developed from ancient Roman techniques that used water to excavate soft underground deposits. The more modern form using high-pressure nozzles officially came about in the 1850s during the California Gold Rush era. Isn't it interesting that this tactic appeared during the same time frame that we see the World's Fairs occurring, which is also the theorized time frame of the mud flood? And then we see this very technique being used at a World's Fair event. Something like this could be implemented by a relatively small number of people to either bury or uncover entire towns. Is this related to why we see so many half-buried buildings all over the world? Remember, the winners write history, and it looks like the World's Fairs are the plot hole in their story.
Just look at these plans from Tesla. Wireless free energy transmitting devices using airships and Tesla towers. Now look at those Tesla towers. I believe they were already part of an old world technology Tesla rediscovered. Once the world elites got wind of what Tesla was planning to do, giving free energy to all, they quickly shut it down. Just look at his Tesla towers and look at the mooring stations of airships. The infrastructure was already there, and it's been there for quite some time. And that's the great thing about these mooring stations. They could be built anywhere and used in small fashion to large fashion. Just think of all those water towers and other odd castle-like towers from the old world. You can even have mooring stations on ships, transferring electricity or receiving electricity. And like I said, this technology has already been in use before. Flying craft of the old world like Vimana, depicted for thousands of years. And look at some of these towers they call observation towers, like in New Brighton. Very similar to both mooring stations and Tesla towers. Truly nothing new under the sun. Question everything, friends.
Gravity is no reason for levity. And even if it is, William Skinner of Miami still believes in his invention, which he calls a gravity power machine. Some engineers say that William's claims are fantastic, but that doesn't stop William from demonstrating on a model what he says should be as clear as mud. He takes a thin cotton thread and drives the machine from a 1/8 horsepower motor. Shafts fitted with weights turn on an off-center axis and the weights go round and around. That simple action, says our William, sets up enough energy to multiply the existing power by 1200%. On that basis, the machine driving a generator could produce power for a township of 3,500 at a cost of £1 a month. He runs a 12-foot lathe with his gravity machine, and with only an 1/8 horsepower peels off steel ribbons 1/4 of an inch wide. But still the engineers are skeptical.
What is this, bro? What is this? Yo, that's like a... What is that, bro?
首先我们需要用到磁铁，把它像这样放在沙滩里。现在我们还需要6个方位把它布满磁铁。打开我们准备好的特斯拉线圈，需要一台发电机，我们启动它。最后一步，打开控制器。接下来我们开始飞翔。
Searching for a place called home. I know that I've been called aside. Ignore the dreams too many lies. Somewhere deep inside, somewhere deep inside me, I found the child I used to be. And I know that it's not too late.
встречает, друзья, военный транспортный самолет с экипажем. Возможно, пилоты все внутри погибли.
Under this pouring rain, and I'm falling, and I feel like I'm your part, and I'm calling, and I'm ready for this start. I know what you're thinking, you're so afraid of sinking, and I am too of coming apart. But I am still your treasure, forever endless pleasure. And how can it be that fine? I can't escape this place where I have seen your face. I can't escape this now while walking around this town. It's my trouble. Do you understand? I don't want this. Where dare you do while walking around this town? It's my trouble. Do you understand? I don't want this. Where dare you do
Is the government hiding an entire civilization from us? The Tartarians were said to be a civilization that unlocked the key to free energy, allowing the Tartarians to advance exponentially as citizens were allowed to express their creativity freely without the stress of work, leading to many great inventions and grand architecture. However, a powerful organization that controlled the world through the sale of energy had already invested heavily into energy production and lobbied against the Tartarians, as free energy will essentially take away all the control that they had. This organization tore the Tartarian Empire apart and erased them from our history books, making it seem like the Tartarians never existed. But if you look carefully, the evidence of the Tartarians is still there in old maps, in architecture around the world that seem to advance. Places like the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, or even the pyramids in Egypt looked way too advanced to have been built by their respective nations. But collectively, all have similar themes in their design, similar themes aimed at harvesting energy.
You are listening to a very old recording of real Tartarian music. In the arcane corridors of lost civilizations, we stumbled upon a musical relic that transcends the boundaries of sound and time, an enigmatic composition in the Locrian key, echoing with the resonance of ancient guitars, or as we've come to call them, Zermaluths. These Zermaluths, not ordinary guitars by any means, emanate a spectral aura, resonating with frequencies that seem to transcend the tangible world. But this discovery goes beyond mere music. It ventures into the realm of scientific mysticism. We've unearthed ancient manuscripts and cryptic scriptures, revealing the profound influence of these melodies on the very fabric of our being. This is no mere auditory illusion. It's a sonic alchemy that has the potential to rewrite the human genetic code and elevate consciousness to unparalleled heights. According to the decoded writings, the Zermaluths operate on a complex interplay of vibration energy, particles, manipulating the very essence of human DNA. Picture this: as the ethereal tones of the Locrian key reverberate through the Zermaluths, a cascade of harmonic frequencies permeates the listener's being. These frequencies act as keys to unlock dormant potentials within our genetic makeup. In the heart of expansive Tartarian structures, where the Zermaluths reverberated through the corridors of time, exist a network of extraordinary halls collectively known as the Luminis Atria. Each of these ethereal chambers, adorned with ever-reflecting mirrors, intricately crafted by the enigmatic Tartarians, serves as a sonic crucible for transcendent Locrian key compositions. Within these Luminis Atria, the mirrors, named Echothrium Reflector, grace the walls, carefully positioned to capture and amplify the vibrations emanating from the Zermaluths. Mystical machines stand sentinel in each hall, collectively referred to as the temporal resonators. These ingenious devices, meticulously engineered by the Tartarians, manipulate time itself, creating cascades of reverberations that unfold in waves of enchanting resonance. Among these temporal resonators, the notable chronoharmonics and echosynthia become integral components in sculpting the transformative processes initiated by Locrian key compositions. As the Locrian key resonates within the Luminis Atria, Echothrium Reflector and temporal resonators collaborate in a mesmerizing dance. Mirrors capture harmonies, reflecting them infinitely, while temporal resonators weave echoes of the past and future into the very fabric of each composition. To download the full Tartarian song, click on our Linktree and go to our Patreon. Creating patterns that resonate with the fundamental vibrations of the universe. Now let's explore the depths of modulation as we manipulate the waveform parameters to unlock new dimensions of sound. With precision and finesse, we sculpt the sonic landscape, molding it into shapes both familiar and otherworldly. Behold the power of frequency modulation as it breathes life into the music, infusing each note with a dynamic energy that defies conventional musical boundaries. The synthesizer becomes a conduit for sonic alchemy, transmuting raw waveforms into auditory gold. As we traverse the sonic terrain, we encounter a symphony of timbres and textures, each one more evocative than the last. From pulsating bass lines to shimmering pads, the synthesizer reveals its boundless versatility, inviting us to explore new sonic frontiers. And so, as our sonic journey draws to a close, we are left with a profound sense of awe and wonder. the Tartarian synthesizer has revealed to us the infinite possibilities of sound, reminding us of the profound connection between music and the cosmos. In closing, let us continue to explore the depths of sonic exploration, pushing the boundaries.
Why do we see no wires on the pylons of the old world? Today our streets are filled with these pylons with wires, but the ancients seem to have no wires. In fact, they were harnessing free energy. Have you ever noticed the metal balls which are on all of the ancient buildings? You probably still have them now. These metal balls were filled with mercury, and on top of them was an antenna which was harnessing the electromagnetic energy. This energy was then sent to the mercury, and watch what happens with mercury. This would cause the mercury to spin and create free energy. The word cathedral comes from cathedral, anode and the cathode, because it's creating electricity. All of these buildings around the world all had the same antennas. This is because it was the great Tartarian Empire. Take a look for yourself.
Of what we know. The Tartarians, living under an immense dome, lead lives vastly different from ours. In their world, where time stretches into 36 to 40-hour days, they don't just exist, they thrive with technology a millennium ahead of ours. But it's not just their advanced tech that's startling. It's their profound connection to each other and to nature, a stark contrast to our often fragmented society. These people, who appoint their leaders with care and consensus, show us a mirror of what we could be, united, creative, and free from the constraints of traditional jobs and societal norms. About 12,000 years ago, this utopian existence was abruptly extinguished by the Alpha Draconian reptilians. The Tartarians, a civilization that could have been a guiding light for humanity, was wiped out, leaving behind a legacy of what might have been.
Did you know that in our not-so-distant past babies were created and incubated en masse? This happened and was showcased as attractions at the World Fairs and even in New York's Coney Island. Can you even imagine carnival attractions where people paid to watch babies growing in incubators? Where were the parents? What happened to all of the babies? Well, have you heard of the orphan trains? They were packed off and shipped out west to help repopulate the great Tartarian cities found abandoned across the land. They were sent to humongous orphanages, and the people were able to get orphans to work their farms and factories. Free labor was abundant, and it was needed to rebuild after the last reset. There is loads of evidence showing that the original Cabbage Patch Kids were these orphans which people just simply picked up and took home like fresh produce. Many children were basically indentured servants and were subjected to lifelong slave labor and sexual abuse. Everything they taught you is a lie. America was covered with empty Tartarian cities, left to rot after the Great Reset, and those that followed grew a few millions babies to repopulate and rebuild. They dug out those cities and started over.
keep on moving on. We just keep on moving